not trying to turn this into a NASCAR rant series. It just ends up going that way because NASCAR keeps feeding me ammunition and I got to get the clicks. But consistently over the years, the ROVAL has been one of the more dumber weekends in the NASCAR series across the board, and certainly didn't disappoint this weekend with stupidity at the highest level. And in all the series that raced there this weekend, Xfinity Cup Series, from the drivers to the administration to the officiating, everything just fell into place. And before anybody starts saying, well, you're only mad because you lost money, gotcha, bitch. I didn't lose any money this weekend. So unlike Kansas and the whole tire debacle, you can't use that argument here. I entered one lineup this weekend. One lineup, entered it in couple contests, entered $24, walked with 44, so I made green this weekend. The lineup I went with even had A.J. Allmendinger, so I cashed in every contest with A.J. Allmendinger, Chase Briscoe, Kyle Larson, Ryan Preece, Tyler Reddick, and Daniel Suarez. So you can't use that argument here. So money has nothing to do with these opinions. This is me talking purely out of a viewer and a guy who really doesn't care about NASCAR at this point. And so let's start with the Xfinity series. And so the curves that they put, I don't understand. Like, we didn't learn anything from Indianapolis. We clearly didn't. Like, I don't understand the purpose of putting the curbs down. Those black and yellow ones preceding the turtles on the back straightaway. Like, it's like these people who put these down there have never driven a car, not even a race car, never driven a car over a curb, not even in a sense of it's going to tear it up. But if you haul ass through a grocery store parking lot and you hit one of those bumps, you're damaging your vehicle. You're going to damage the control arms. You're going to damage the suspension in some form or fashion. I'll just multiply that. In a parking lot, you might be doing like 20, 30 at max if you're trying to run over children or something. But these guys are obviously going to hit these turtles going at a high rate of speed. I'd just put concrete blocks there. Just put a concrete barrier perpendicular to the track and just have him hit it head on, because it's equivalent to that. That's what you're doing. You're just taking the guy out of the race. Secondly, I know we had the whole curb debacle at Indianapolis, but at least those are made out of metal. The curbs that poor old Balicki hit were legit like grocery store bumps. Like, that's what you see bolted into the asphalt at like a convenience store or something to slow people down. And so as soon as he hit that, obviously it unearths the curbs. It leaves the exposed bolts there. Like, I can't think of anything more NASCAR than that. The whole Sage Karam incident. Well, not even Sage Karam. And so when we look at the end of the Xfinity Series race, which was quite hilarious, the entire field killed each other out of the final corner. Which I've said this before about the ROVAL. Like, this is a poorly designed track. Like this track is literally built for chaos, and the TV wants that. NASCAR and the networks want that. But, just like the Squid Game, meme that I posted, I think on Friday or something, like, no matter what I plan, no matter what happens, they're just going to end up wrecking in both series, and it happened like that in both series. So even outside of the Tommy Joe Martins incident that led to the green-white checker, they end up having, Michael Annett get spun, you had Ty Gibbs run off the track, and this is just Xfinity. Like, I'm just talking about Xfinity at this point. And so, let's kind of fast forward, because I'm kind of rewatching the end here. So we obviously have Sam Mayer, choke. Oh, that's another. Okay, so my friends and I were talking, and obviously the rule is if you miss the chicane on the back straightaway, you either stop there or stop in the front straightaway. And we were debating, and I think NASCAR kind of realized it when they added some barriers to the chicane, but it really didn't matter a whole lot because there's no rule in the rule book, because we don't know the rule book. It just exists whenever NASCAR commands it to exist. And we'll talk about that more when we kind of talk about Chase Elliott. But we were saying, I think you could have been able to just fucking blow through the back straightaway if you chose to. It's certainly in Xfinity. Have enough time to just slam on the brake out at Charlotte 4, stop in that chicane on the front straightaway, and probably still keep your position. I know there was a part where Cindric, he still slowed down, and he lost 3 seconds on his position, but we were saying that, like, seriously, like, coming out of the infield road course, entering Charlotte 1, if you just flat-footed it down the back straightaway like you're running the 1.5 miles and just blew through the chicane, You could have been able to just lock the tires up out of 4, probably even use the wall to help you slow down and say come into like the checker flag or something, and then probably still be able to win the race. And so, yet again, NASCAR is just vague on these rules. Like they're acting like they have all these rules set up, and people still don't follow them, and NASCAR still doesn't even follow their own rules. And so obviously, you know, we're coming down to the final corner in the Xfinity Series race. Top 4 cars make it through. After that, we have not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. We got 5 cars spin out coming out of the final corner of the Xfinity Series race. Sage Karam, the poor guy, you know, he's trying to run well. He gets absolutely turned through the chicane. And this is where, you know, NASCAR's whole, oh, if you blow through the chicane, you know, we're going to penalize you. Chase Briscoe got forced into the he got forced off the corner at Indianapolis. And so he drove through. He's like, well, I got absolutely pile drived into the grass. And so Karam, this is even probably more so not even his fault. It's because the chicanes that NASCAR makes at Daytona and here at Charlotte, they're literally 1 lane turns. This is like, I know the broadcast booth refers to them, you know, it's very similar to a street course. But, you know, a street course, or like if you look at Monaco in F1, it's a 1 lane racetrack, but there's walls there. Like, I don't understand the point of these. Just put up fucking walls and have these cars get destroyed instead of just penalizing these poor guys. And so Karam, he tried to stop. He didn't stop entirely, but we have Ty Gibbs stopping. You got Brandon Brown, you know, failing a DUI test, driving backwards across the start-finish line. Like, what are we doing here? And that's just the Xfinity Series race. So moving on to the Cup Series race, let's touch on, and this will probably all land on my bigger point later in here, but let's touch on the Xfinity, or let's touch on the ROVAL race for the Cup Series. And so, man, it was very fun watching somebody get fired at Charlotte. Not gonna lie, man, it's very rare you see somebody get fired live on television. And you know who that was? Whoever's putting the electrical components together for the Hendrick cars. Like, I feel so bad for that man, because that man is fired. There's absolutely no way they keep him employed. We had 2 championship contending cars have electrical issues today, or in the ROVAL. You know, you had Bowman and Kyle Larson, and yeah, like, poor dude, you're fired. Outside of that, I still believe A.J. Allmendinger probably would have finished top 5. And I don't understand the idiots on Twitter telling people to bet Joey Hand at top 20. I don't understand that at all. We talked about it on a live show. I didn't understand that. I thought A.J. Allmendinger to lead in the lap would make way more sense if you were going to take a bet like that. And yeah, like that's really all I have to say about Joey Hand. Joey Hand showed up and did what we thought he would do. Like, I don't know why these idiots thought that just because he's in a Stewart-Haas car, he's going to do amazing. Like, hello, Custer's been in a Stewart-Haas car this whole year. Like, up and down, man, not consistent. This is not. We don't have road ringers in here anymore in the Cup Series, and in NASCAR in general. We just don't have it anymore. So stop elevating those guys. Unless they offer place differential, you got to stop elevating those guys. And probably more place differential more for Truck Series and Xfinity Series, but don't project those guys to do well for the Cup Series. I don't understand that at all. We'll touch on the big subject here. So A.J. Allmendinger blows a motor, locks the motor up down the back straightaway. Clearly there's stuff on the track, because you don't just have a motor blow up and then lose power down the back straightaway. Like, so we know that there's some sort of debris on the track. Maybe it's minuscule at max, but there's stuff on the track. No black flag. We get Harvick running over Chase Elliott, and frankly, I don't give a shit one way or the other on Harvick wrecking Chase Elliott, because these championships are made up and the points don't matter. Nothing matters in NASCAR anymore. You can win the most amount of races and finish outside the top 5 in points. So it doesn't, like, the championship means nothing anymore. This is just a WWE with race cars. And so personally, I'm not mad at Harvick for wrecking Chase Elliott. I don't like either of them a ton, but you got to look at it in Harvick's eyes. And so Harvick's going to retire. Like, I'm on the seat of he's going to retire maybe at the end of next year. Some people are wanting him to continue. I would not be shocked if he just flat up quits after this year. Think about it. You have your best race you have your best season in history last year. Clearly would have been a championship in any era of NASCAR other than post 2014. You enter this year, no practice. Your team is by far struggling. Like, you guys have been off pace. You're slowly getting there, but you haven't had it. Bristol was your shot to win. That was Harvick's only chance to win this year. Elliott fucks it up. That's just how it is. Elliott takes it away. And so I don't understand, if Harvick is so mad I'm going to rip someone's head off, well then punch Elliott. You have your helmet on. Headbutt him. Hit Elliott. Do something. I don't have a lot of respect for people who are two-faced. You can't say you're going to rip someone's head off and then you just sit there for over 45 minutes at different places and just talk to Elliott. Like, punch the guy in the face, or you're not that angry, Harvick. So either do something. So at least he did something here. He should have done it at Bristol. He should have just punched Elliott at Bristol, ended it there. So, you know, he just punts Elliott out of the way because Harvick doesn't care anymore, man. He's old. He just wants to hang out with Keelan, maybe get Keelan in the Cup Series or something. But he just wants to relax. You know, he's past his days of giving a shit in NASCAR. And so, you know, he takes out Elliott, and Elliott's able to get back out there, and people are, you know, condemning, you know, the chatter or the team chatter from the 9 team of being like, well, if we wreck Harvick, we can get in, or we got to go back and wreck Harvick. Hello! Brian France put all this into play years ago when he said, boys, have at it. NASCAR has been a very hands-off type of officiating when it comes to people settling their own scores. It's been that way forever. You see Earnhardt wrecking people. You see guys getting back at people for eons. You know, like if you're not gonna punish Tony Stewart for shoving Matt Kenseth into the grass at a super speedway on purpose because he's just not liking how he's racing, you can't just choose here. Like, oh well, they suspended Matt Kenseth. Okay. Because Matt Kenseth literally took out the championship contender. The guy who was going to win the championship, Joey Logano, was going to win the championship. Matt Kenseth took that away. NASCAR kind of has to suspend him. But that's all they did. Here, Elliott's not a championship contender. Harvick is not a championship contender. Like, what's going on there? This is very equivalent to Tony Stewart wrecking Ryan Newman at Richmond a couple years ago just because Newman was racing him like an asshole. And then Newman in the interview is like, well, go on YouTube and type in Tony Stewart. You'll see who a real Tony Stewart is. Like, that's what this feels like. This is not 2 championship contenders wrecking each other. And so, you know, everybody condemning the radio chatter. Like I said, I called it. I mean, I've been calling it for years, but I put it on audio, and I think episode 2 of this series of when I said current NASCAR encourages the wrong behavior. Like, don't hate the player at this point, hate the game. These guys are just playing the hands that they're dealt. How many times have we seen somebody wreck somebody or put somebody in the wall on the last lap in these playoffs ever since it's come into fashion? Yet again, you have Ryan Newman punting Larson at Phoenix. You have Harvick having to wreck the field at Talladega. Well, see, Harvick's just nasty. Harvick is a guy who doesn't do anything until his back is against the wall. And if his back is against the wall, he's going to do anything to advance. And that's just how it is. So at Talladega, when Harvick wrecked the field, he had to do that to advance. Don't blame Harvick, blame the game. And so when you have Elliott and his crew talking about, hey, if we see Harvick again, we can wreck him or we can get locked in if we take him out, don't hate Elliott. Don't hate the team, hate the game. Obviously, it was quite hilarious to see NASCAR blatantly playing a hand in the drama because the field was spread out. And NASCAR understands that this race is going to go green unless we have a yellow. And the only way we're going to get a yellow is pretty much from a debris caution. Well, we have, throughout the second half of the race, you see Chase Elliott's rear end bouncing around like he's at a club twerking, and it slowly starts dragging and getting all loosey-goosey and everything, and then obviously his rear end starts hanging off and just flying around. And this is when NASCAR, that rule book that I said, and that's why they keep it away from us, so we can't see. If we had a rule book, we'd clearly be pointing out, Section A, point 36, whatever the case is, Chapter 11, black flag the motherfucker who's going to have debris coming off the car. And we've seen that across the board. And it's so weird that people on Twitter will call it out, but then they're just like, oh, that's NASCAR. Like, NASCAR needed a caution to get the field back together, to put up a good television rating, certainly for the end of the race. Elliott is clearly going to drop debris on the track. That's just how it is. And they don't give him a black flag because it's Chase Elliott. And because if they give Chase Elliott a black flag, he's most likely not going to advance to the next round. If they give him a black flag, they don't get their caution that they need to round the field back up and to get a good finish. And so that's why they didn't do it. It's blatantly obvious. NASCAR is manipulating the races. Again, they're choosing when to give the black flag to somebody, and they're choosing when to acknowledge the rule book. And so, like I said, it was funny on Twitter because people actually have, like an archive of every time somebody's been black flag for that exact same instance. And the only thing is that you're not Chase Elliott. You're not a fan favorite. And they've done this before. You remember Junior used to get a lot of, kind of phantom yellows that go his way, or yellow wouldn't come out if it was going to help Dale Earnhardt Jr. But it's certainly been more and more this year to where the officiating has been questionable at best the entirety of this year. Not even road courses. All the road courses this year have been jokes. And it's wild that they're still going to have this many next year because this is just the way that the NASCAR executives want it to go. They want it to be more chaos and more unpredictability and things like that. But they're choosing when to follow the rule book. And so Elliott getting that or the lack of black flag on Elliott is clear as day that NASCAR is rigging this. And these are evidence. Like this year, the tire that they left out in the infield, that has always been a yellow instantly. NASCAR chose to wait on the yellow. This has always been a black flag. But as soon as the rear end came detached from Elliott's car, that yellow came out. They were watching Elliott. And it was funny because the TV stayed on Elliott for like 10 minutes, like acted like there was not 40 cars on the track. They just stayed on Elliott, watching that, waiting for it to come off to be a yellow. Because that's what it is. And so people always, get mad at me and stuff when I say, man, I hope that flies off and hits a fan. I hope it flies over the catch fence and decapitates a minor. But that's what NASCAR deserves. You're playing with danger here. Like you are actively not caring about safety. You're just foregoing that. You're foregoing safety for entertainment. That's just another example of it. And also goes back to, I posted a clip on Twitter. I might post it in a supercut. Don't really know. But I was half joking and half serious. Like, I just wish somebody in the infield had a gun that they would have just given to either Harvick or Elliott and just settle the fucking feud there. Like, these guys the drivers today are a bunch of pussies. Like, they don't fight in the pit road. I'm not saying you should just turn this into Bowman Gray every weekend. But if you're mad at somebody and you're mad enough to rip someone's head off, punch the guy in the face. You're not going to get charged. Well, you might get pulled in, but how often have we seen somebody get charged for assault in NASCAR? Rarely, if none. I can't imagine a situation where it's happened. Hell, prior to Kurt Busch, you could assault your significant other, Travis Kvapil, and be able to race. And so I just feel like I'm on drugs watching the ROVAL race. Like, clearly, blatant NASCAR manipulating the race in that. And, Harvick and Elliott not finishing this feud at any good point. Like, just fucking fight in the pits. Who cares? Anybody can wreck a race car. And it's just wild how poorly Harvick looked in the post-race because the man got scared by Chase Elliott. You got absolutely intimidated by a stick in the mud, no personality, goody-goody two-shoes Chase Elliott. I haven't laughed that hard in years. And thank God I got it recorded. I know I'm posting that because when Harvick just mirror drove through turn one into the wall, and not only did he drive it into the wall, he missed the tires, and so he just slammed into it. It's very, like, we saw so many rare things. Like, we literally saw a guy drive headfirst into a safer barrier. I mean, Harvick, just admit it. Just admit, hey, I thought I was terrified he was going to wreck me, overdrove the corner, fucked up. That's how it is. Like, it's wild, man. They're both a bunch of dumbasses. Elliott's a fucking loser. I can't stand Elliott. Harvick is just a dumbass. I can't stand Harvick at times. And Harvick likes to act like a fucking tough guy. But Harvick started the fight with Keselowski and Gordon at Texas by just being an asshole. Harvick has, he always talks shit, but like I said, he's always the one who's back into a corner who does things that other drivers do, but that's kind of your reputation now. Like, Harvick's always said, man, it would have been nice to race against Earnhardt. It's a shame I kind of took over for him. Well, guess what, Harvick? You just raced against Dale Earnhardt because you just got intimidated beyond belief. Like, I haven't seen that stupidity in years in NASCAR. That's one of the all-time idiotic moves. It's wild, man. It's absolutely wild. And so the whole thing was a fucking farce, dude. Like, how can you put money on this stuff now? Like, how can you actively care about this stuff when so many things don't matter? No matter what research you did, no matter how you did. Like, obviously I talked up A.J. Allmendinger. Obviously I talked up Chris Buescher. Obviously I talked up Reddick. I understood De Benedetto was going to be a good play. It just depended on what chalk would come through. But in all, fucking data don't matter right now. And I don't think it will. Even when practice comes back, I think we're overanalyzing data too much because NASCAR is playing a hand in it. This is getting closer and closer to wrestling than it is a professional motorsports. And so kind of my main point goes back to how I've been feeling about the last month, really this year actually, is, how much do I really want to put into this? How much time do I really want to put into this? The contest structures are absolutely horrible, absolutely disgusting recently. And so you pretty much have to, you got to finish first to really get anything. At this point, the chase is better than the catch, and I think, DraftKings and FanDuel both understand that type of mentality of getting people in there, but like these contests don't pay out well. Sports betting is slowly coming to different states, and I think you might have a better ROI on that, depending on what you do. And I don't know, man. It really makes me question what I'm going to do next year and how I'm going to do stuff, because I've rolled around some ideas of what I want to do. I've considered going free next year. However, Pierce got royally screwed by doing that this year, earlier in the year. People didn't give him the support, so I'd be very terrified of that. I'm considering lowering the price for my stuff because people do like it, and people say I should actually be charging more, but I'd like to get more volume in there. And part of me doesn't even want to play NASCAR DFS next year outside of super speedways, just because I still think the only edge in DFS nowadays is there. But I don't know. Part of me kind of just wants to build lineups on video, not even play any of them, and just talk about analyzing slates more than actually playing them, because I enjoy the live shows with Jordan and when I was doing with Pierce more than anything at this point, certainly this year. So we're still mulling that over of what I'm going to do next year. So let's get into another topic, and that's really all I have on the ROVAL. Like, the ROVAL was just a fucking joke. Everything's a joke, and you could say I'm complaining, but I'm just pointing things out. And I wish the media would ask things like this. Like, don't just roll over. Like, come on, Bob Cockris, can you ask a real question? Somebody ask Harvick, hey, why did you do that? Like, you straight up got intimidated. It's not because, he's a 9-year-old and, he's like, Harvick, you got chased, driver. You got intimidated. It's okay, just admit it. Like, call people out on this stuff. What are we doing here? It's just ridiculous. And the NASCAR saying we're gonna have to say, NASCAR, who gives a fuck, man? Texas is going to be a boring race. It's going to be green. If anything, Texas is the place where you want Harvick to do something to LA. You want something to happen because we need more cautions at Texas. Because Texas is most likely the worst designed track on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule at the moment. I would argue New Hampshire's worse, but at least New Hampshire hasn't changed. Like, you know what you're getting in New Hampshire. You can at least get 2 lanes if you try. Texas is a one-groove racetrack. They absolutely destroyed Texas. There's going to be no passing at Texas other than the first 2 turns on a restart, maybe into turn 3. But that's it. You are single file the entire time at Texas. And so Texas is a place where, yet again, we're going to put into research. We're going to look into intermediate tracks. We're going to look into people who have been good on long runs. And NASCAR is just going to throw a fucking yellow with 15 laps to go at Texas. That's how it's going to go because you need ratings. You need to save Texas. They're not even using PJ1 because it's killed IndyCar at that track. They're using the resin. Yet again, just throwing random things at the wall. You know, all this stuff is made up and it doesn't matter. This is not a real motorsport anymore. This is a joke. That's how it is. So that's kind of my short rant for Texas. Expect stupid shit to happen at the end of the race because that's just what is going to happen to make this race good. NASCAR does not want Kyle Larson to win at Texas by 15 seconds. They don't want the leader to win by 15 seconds on a long run at Texas. That's just not what they want. Oh, well, you know, Kyle Busch won it last year on fuel mileage. Well, remember who was taken out in that race? Harvick, the guy who would have won that race by 15 seconds because it rained last year. Or they ran in the mist last year and took out cars. Same thing here. NASCAR doesn't want boring races anymore. That's how it is. Let's talk about the next-gen car real quick. I forgot who said it looked like a station wagon, but man, it really does. These cars are high, wide, and handsome. They're thickums. They are very, very thick, and if they made a Cars 4, pretty sure all the females in that Pixar movie would have OnlyFans accounts because these cars are thick and wide. This is the NASCAR Station Wide series because that's what they look like. These look like a bunch of Subarus driving around. I don't understand the people who are like, man, these cars look great. Where have you seen a Mustang that looks like an overweight Mustang? Like, what is going on? These cars are huge, man. They're gigantic. And people are freaking out at them locking up tires at the road course. Like, people are freaking out at I think there's a video on NASCAR's YouTube called, you know, Kyle Larson locking up tires at the ROVAL. Well, that's because, have you ever heard of weight transfer? He's not locking up the tires. It's certainly, like, when he's in the infield and you see the right front lock up, it's because the right front is picked up off the ground. You know, the brake calipers are against the brake pad, or the brake pad is against the rotor, and the right front is up in the air. And so, of course, the tire is going to stop moving because there's no friction against the tire and the asphalt because the tire's off the ground. And then when the tire hits the ground again, because you already have the pad squeezing the rotor, when it hits the asphalt, more of the friction is still on the rotor than it is against the asphalt. And so you see the tire smoke and you think the tire is locked up. You know, these drivers are passing. No, it's because the weight transfer of the car. You know, all the weight is shifted to the left side or right side when they're entering these corners. Like, these people are high. These people are drunk. Like, these cars are ugly. They're still made out of styrofoam. Have you seen the rear suspension? You get an independent rear suspension that makes Legend spindles. The Legend cars, little 34 coupes, those spindles are notoriously made out of styrofoam, and they snap if you look at them incorrectly. This rear end housing that we're looking at for these next gen cars, these independent rear suspension components, if you even walk incorrectly 100 feet away, the vibration looks like they're going to snap them. And there's something you can't just replace instantly. And so there's a real concern between me and other people in the, at least racing industry, that we're concerned that, you know, if one of these cars takes a hit on the right rear, or it spins out, or it hits the wall at some point, you might end up breaking components on the rear end, and you might just be done. Like, these cars are getting more and more fragile in a space where NASCAR wants more and more contact. You know what car you could have made a lot of contact with? You know, the Gen 4, even the Gen 5, the steel body cars. Like, what are we doing here? We're chasing the wrong thing, NASCAR. And so Those are my topics, man. I wanted to talk about space. I wanted to talk about conspiracy theories. But no, I got to spend half an hour ranting about NASCAR because why are we wasting money on this? Why are we putting money on? Like, I'm asking myself, like, do I just not want to play NASCAR DFS next year, other than the plate races, and still cover it week in and week out, or play very, very small amounts? Like, I certainly have more fun when I play more lineups, and I think I do better when I play more lineups because I can account for more instances. But at the same time, that just means more time wasted on this, more time towards the research and stuff. Who's kidding? I'm still going to do it next year. I'm still going to be doing the same stuff now. But, it makes me question, just like, this is a joke. Like, this is legit asking me to, like, just predict WWE. And so I build for chaos. Like, the last month and a half, every single one of my lineups has just built for chaos. And it's cashed very well because we're not applying logic anymore. We're just building for chaos and whatever NASCAR wants. And so, keep that in mind. Like, this stuff's a joke. How many times this year has NASCAR done something incredibly stupid? Let's count them together off the top of my head. Daytona Road Course. The Kansas debacle with the tire. Obviously, COTA. Sonoma wasn't necessarily NASCAR's fault, but it was a wreck fest. We had... let me think. Let me pull up the schedule. Let's look at this year, and let's see if I can remember outside of the no practice and the stuff like, people having loose batteries or alternators not working and things that would be found in practice very easily, and we still don't have a 5-minute practice. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely dumb. The NASCAR schedule just came out a couple weeks ago. What? Bro, if you're planning to go to LA for the Super Bowl, maybe it would have been nice to know that, hey, there's a NASCAR race the week before there. Or like, hey, I want to go see NASCAR at the Coliseum in LA. Oh, wait, I can't. All the hotels in LA are booked because the fucking Super Bowl's there. Like, why are we bringing these things out last minute, NASCAR? That's a sign. Like, if you're at a job and, it's the fourth quarter and you don't have plans for next year up until, like, the fourth quarter, like, stuff is wrong. Like, the fire alarm needs to go off. And so Charlotte Road had issues. Let's see. Earlier this year, did anything happen at Phoenix? Can't recall what happened at Phoenix. Pretty sure it went green. Outside of, Larson failing tech and Truex winning it late in the race. And so we had, Atlanta, if you want to bring up Logano blocking Larson at Atlanta so Blaney could win the race. And so you have that there. You have Bristol Dirt, which was just a joke. And we're going to do it again next year because NASCAR likes chaos. Kansas, the situation happened there. Dover, half the teams, like Joe Gibbs Racing, just didn't even show up. You had COTA, and in the rain, kill half the field. You had Sonoma turn to a wreck fest at the end. You had Nashville, which just ended up being a lap turner. You have, let's see, Pocono didn't do anything crazy. Road America, half the field pitted, nothing crazy there. Atlanta 2, nothing crazy. London, obviously, the rain debacle to where you take out Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. Indianapolis GP, which was indeed a joke. Daytona to end the regular season. Let's see. Bristol with the whole debacle of Harvick and Elliott and all those guys. Talladega, like, not even existing at this point. Not even a real race in my mind. And then the Charlotte Road. Just like, so let's go back. So you get Charlotte, Talladega. Let's count the second Bristol race. Daytona, Indy, Loudon, Road America, Sonoma, Austin, Dover. That's 10 races right there with questionable things related to sports betting or research. Bristol Dirt 11. And then Daytona Road 12. That's 12 races this year that aren't even all super speedways, that have had just questionable things, and things that if you compare this to, a schedule like in 2008 in NASCAR, like, you don't have this many random things happen. You don't have this many random acts of God happening. And so we don't know things entering this weekend at Texas. Like, Harvick could show up and he could not show up. We might have, the Hendrick cars yet again run into issues. We might not. Like, there's so many unpredictable things. Like, why are we putting so much money on this when anything can happen? And, it all goes back to NASCAR needs Texas to be kind of chaotic and interesting, because Texas is usually a boring race. And so keep that in mind. So hopefully if we can make it through Texas and I have to make one of these, we'll talk about some conspiracy theories. I like talking about space. I like talking about different conspiracy theories. So we'll have some fun here. And I want to actually just talk and be out there, but I keep having to talk about NASCAR because it just gets more and more stupid each week. And so thank you for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you have any topics you'd like me to talk about here, please tweet at me or leave them in the comment section, and just let me know in a live show. Be like, hey, can you talk about this? Can you talk about that? What do you think of, can jet fuel melt steel beams? Who knows? So feel free to drop things in the comment sections below, and contact me if you want me to rant about stuff. So thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you probably tomorrow for Texas videos and stuff. So we'll see you then.